Howdy y'all, it's Curious Raven. I hope y'all are doing great today. I have a collection of 7 ghostly stories for y'all. Number 1, this is my first time making a post, so I don't know how to start. But I'm looking for some advice or anyone who knows anything about this man/spirit. I don't know. I'm going to leave out some details as to not make this post too long. But I first seen this thing appear at about 8 to 10 years old. I can't remember exactly when, but I was outside my house at night with my younger sister, 2 years younger, down the sidewalk when it started sprinting at us full speed, with its head down covering its face with the brim of its top hat, swinging his arms in a nasty, unnatural way. At first I thought it was just a bad dream, until I brought it up to my sister one day a couple years later, and she says she remembers it too, the exact same way as which freaked me out. When we later told our mom, she says she would occasionally see the same man in her country home following her around the streets at night, which freaks me out, because now it's 3 of us saying we have seen the same man in different countries. So I don't know. If anyone knows anything about this, please let me know. Number 2. First of all, didn't really put much thought into the subject line and wasn't going for a typical clickbait subject line, but really not sure how else to write it, that I was saved from beyond the veil. This story happens in 2008. I was driving my car through a small town in South Africa, on my way to a friend's birthday party at his house in Hilton, small town virtually a suburb of PNB. Just me and a 6-pack of beer on the back seat, uni student and afford a case at the time. As I was driving up to a traffic light, the light changed incredibly suddenly. In South Africa, the lights flash orange multiple times before going red. This time, it changed straight from green to red. The car ahead of me slammed on brakes, and so did I. I narrowly missed rear-ending them. For whatever reason, I had this instant thought of my grandmother, who had passed a few years before. This is where the strangeness starts. Somehow the jolt from braking caused my cell phone to fall backwards out of my pocket. Still not sure how that is physically possible. And then flew forwards, landing right underneath my brake pedal immediately after I had made the stop. Immaculate, near impossible timing. Once I'd realized what happened, I tried to reach down and grab my phone. Couldn't, with the seatbelt on. So I take off my seatbelt, grab my phone, place it in the middle console, and continue on my way. It's about 3 miles of driving down some small country roads. I reached what I now know is a 4-way stop. The stop sign was completely obstructed by a tree. The last thing I remember seeing was car lights to my right and thinking, oh shit. The oncoming car had apparently also not seen the 4-way stop and hit me. What the police think was 110 miles per hour. My car was flipped onto its roof, spun multiple times before stopping against a wooden fence of a house on the corner of the intersection. No one knows what happened. There was a massive break in the slates of the fence where they think I was flung from the driver's seat, my back making contact with the fence, and falling with my head hanging out of the rear window of the car. I won't bore you with the details of waking up in the ambulance with my mom holding my head. Someone had found my phone in the street and called my parents, or the fact that I only walked away with 3 stitches in my head. But that day, I know my gran somehow made this happen. The car above the driver's seat was crushed and was about 50 centimeters above the seat. Had I been wearing my seatbelt, I would have been squished into a 50 by 50 by 50 block of metal and bone. She was there with me in that car. Believe it or not, but for me, there is no other answer. Number 3. Around 3 years ago, my boyfriend Joe and I went for a city break to Prague. This was my first time visiting, but Joe had been before for lad's holiday. Unfortunately, a few years prior to our visit, one of his best friends passed away. Our trip was in February, so the weather was a bit hit and miss. It started hailstoning, so we ducked into an Irish bar to dry off and get a drink. As we were warming up, Joe starts telling me how he and his friends had been in this Irish bar when they had came for their lad's holiday. He started showing me pictures of them all sat at the table opposite to where we sat. He then sends the pictures into his group chat with the lads who were there, and almost instantly, his friend's funeral song started playing. Now, if that wasn't enough, the very next song that played was his second funeral song. They played back to back, and they were not of the same genre. They were very different songs. We both got goosebumps instantly. Now I am a believer, however Joe isn't, but even he said that it was enough to convince him. What do you think? Contact or coincidence? Number 4. So a few months ago, I had an issue with my bank and I had to get a completely new bank card. When I had called them to rectify the issue, we went over several different purchases to clarify if it was me who made them or not. Once it was taken care of, they told me to keep an eye on my account so I would know when I would get the refunded money back that I had lost. Cut to a few days ago. I was taking a nap and had missed a phone call from the claims department on my bank. They left a message. I could barely understand the guy speaking, and it sounded so echoey and muffled. I called them back, which is where I was waiting on hold and being passed around to every department for over 2 hours. Nobody could seem to help me, and were almost confused as to why I was calling if the matter had been taken care of a few months ago. Today, around 11:30 a.m. to 12 p.m., I received another phone call from my bank. When I answer and say hello, it's dead silent. I repeat myself a few more times just to be met with dead air. So I hang up and proceeded to have an uneasy feeling about what happened after. What's your thoughts? Number 5. This is another story from my old apartment. For some background, it was a 2-story apartment above a pizza place. It was just my mother and I who lived there full time, and an old man had passed away upstairs in my mother's bedroom. I didn't know this until we moved out. One day I woke up and my mother was off running some errands, so I decided to go make breakfast in the kitchen. Since I was home alone, I was singing pretty loudly and opening the cupboard when all of a sudden I heard a very loud shh come from behind me in my right ear. I immediately froze, looked around to see nothing. A very uncomfortable feeling of dread had washed over me for the rest of my time in the kitchen. I decided to be as quiet as possible, assuming I had disturbed something. Number 6. When I was younger, my mother and I moved around a lot. We started off living with my mother's boyfriend at the time for a few years before moving to another house, and then the creepy apartment. It was a 3-story house, and the basement had many different vintage items, such as this old duck shooter game system that still worked, I'm not sure what it's called, and an old popcorn machine. There was also one of those old box TVs from like the 90s to 2000s that we had in the corner. One night, my mom's boyfriend and I were watching TV on it in the basement before deciding to go see what my mom was doing upstairs. We walked upstairs and sat on the couch with my mom when all of a sudden, Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus started playing full volume on the old TV in the basement. My mom's boyfriend and I went downstairs to turn it off and discuss how weird it was considering we turned the TV off and only had the volume at like 13. Not to mention we weren't listening to Miley Cyrus. We were watching a show. but it's old, right? Then we went back upstairs and sat down with my mom, and a few minutes later started hearing Wrecking Ball playing on the TV, with the volume slowly increasing until it hit 100 again. I made her boyfriend turn it off alone, as now I was scared. It never happened again, and there had been no other incidents with the TV before or since. Number 7. So first of all, I would like to point out nothing strange or paranormal had ever happened in my house before. Been living here for 18 years, since I was born. I always believed in ghosts and spirits, but I never suspected or thought my house was haunted until now. So basically, last weekend, my family and I went on a short road trip to go visit a family member. We will come back the same day. When we're all already in the car ready to go, I noticed I left my AirPods in my room. I quickly ran inside to get them. I was the last person inside the house, as everyone was already inside the car. Remember this. When we came back home the night, I was the first person to enter the house and went directly to my room. First thing I noticed was a large yellow package on my bed. I was extremely confused because I hadn't remembered putting it there and no one else was home, so I was just wondering who the fuck put it there. Opened the file up and it was my mom's, who had died of cancer 15 years ago. MRI scans. I always knew that big package was there, but I never knew what it was until now. I then went to go show my parents, dad and stepmom. They were still going in and out of the house getting stuff out of the car. My dad was extremely confused, not because I took them out. He was more confused on how I got the package out so quickly since we had barely gotten home. To add more context, the large yellow package was at the very bottom of the closet, so in order to get it out, we would have had to remove a lot of things, including heavy boxes. I never got the package out, and it wasn't there when I left, and no one was home. So the only realistic explanation is someone broke into the house, knew where the folder was at, took all the stuff above it out, put the folder on my bed, and put everything back inside the closet exactly how it was. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would someone do that? So right now I'm thinking something paranormal happened there, but why? Was it a ghost trying to tell us something? Could someone explain? Did my mom come visit? And why would she show us that? That is the end of the 7 stories for today. I love y'all. I will see y'all again soon this week. But until then, remember it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross